My name's Daniel Norton and welcome to the second edition of the podcast, where we'll be speaking to all sorts of people in football, plenty of Port Adelaide people over the next little while, just finding out exactly their contribution to our great game. This week's special guest, Brian Leys, who has recently been appointed General Manager of the SANFL edition of the Port Adelaide Football Club. Brian, thanks for your time on the podcast.
Am I the first one to do this, or where is the importance in this? Number one is more important, or how's it go?
You're the first Magpie representative. Okay. You're the second in queue, behind the legendary Byron Pickett, who we spoke to last week.
I'll take that. So I feel really important. Thanks, boys.
No worries, Leesy. Hey, mate, what have you been doing in recent years? Because we know you went to Perth, I think, for a few years. Can you give us a bit of an understanding of that?
Not so I can tell you why I did this, and I was here in 2007. In that time as an assistant coach, I was really frustrated with what was happening, but I didn't see myself making a difference as an assistant coach. Mm-hmm. I saw myself being one day able to make a difference as a football administrator, whether that be a football manager, whether that be a general manager, whatever it was. I took a huge risk or a gamble, and my wife was 7 months pregnant at the time, but I said, for me to get to where I want to get to in footy, I need to go away and learn my trade somewhere else. So I took a job with Qantas in Perth, and purely took that job. Wasn't a role that I wanted to take on, wasn't a role that I would say that I enjoyed or strived for, but I believed that if I was going to learn more about management in football, I needed to get away and learn more about management. So I had a year and a half at Qantas, and then I started applying for jobs in Perth. I applied for a job at Swan Districts. I didn't get that job. Then I applied for a job at the Perth Football Club, and I was lucky enough to be appointed as a CEO. So over the past 2.5 years, I was CEO of the Perth Football Club, where I really just wanted to learn my trade and adapt what I believe was right, put that into a football club to see if it changed. Now, the things that we turned the football club around in 2.5 years to a club that was on the bottom ladder, not making a profit. Off-field, we started... we recorded a profit of $20,000 in my last year, and then it was really about recruiting players. Now recruiting Leon Davis, Paul Bevan, bringing guys like Brendan Stack back from Western Bulldogs and Ellie Smith back from St Kilda. It was really trying to change the culture of the club to bring that winning culture back, and that's really exactly what I'm looking at doing here.
So how did you end up here at Alberton? Obviously transferred across at the start of this year. How did that all come about? It happened fairly quickly, actually. Like, there was just a turn of events where I'd found out probably through the grapevine that the job was up, and that Neil was moving on from the job. And I even spoke to Neil at that time as well, that he was one that informed me that he was moving on from the job. Neil Rollins,
And that was something that, straight away it really interested me. And I went back to Sherry, left work that day, and I went home to Sherry and I said, listen, this is the job that we come over here for. I wanted to get back into this role eventually. It's probably happened a little bit quicker than I expected, but if I'm lucky enough to get this job, I want to take it, but I certainly want to apply for it, and that's how it all came about. So it was a really quick process. In February this year, I was planning a year at Perth Football Club, and then by March, I was all sorted about coming back here to start April 16. So it happened really quickly, but that was my goal. My goal was clearly to come back here and be in the role that I'm in now, and I'm lucky enough to have it. So it's really exciting, and it's fantastic, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's a hell of a challenge, but I really, really love what I'm doing.
We've had your feet on the desk now for a couple of months. What have you noticed? What differences have you noticed at the Magpies since you've been back? Well, there's a real obvious one. It's one club, obviously, that the Magpies and Power have reunified, and that happened, of course, about 18 months ago. How have you found that? And because when you left, it would have been two distinctive clubs. Now we're one club and two teams. How have you found that? I
think it's great. One of the things that I've loved about coming back is we don't talk about the Power or the Magpies. We talk about Port Adelaide Football Club. And I still think we have a way to go in really bringing that together. But the belief around Port Adelaide Football Club now, I think, is absolutely amazing. It's great to talk about what we have and what we've had and what we're doing right now. The resources we have here are just phenomenal. I think to be able to come in the office every day and see a group of people that are really determined to make the club successful off the field, I think that's great for the players to see that as well. So I'm really enjoying the one club. The thing that I've noticed about the SANFL side of things, and maybe even some of the AFL side, that we made a lot of excuses. When I first got back, there was a lot of excuses on why we weren't successful, and I think we were blaming a lot of other things rather than taking control of the situation and being accountable for ourselves. And one of the things I'm really driving hard from an SANFL point of view is to get that right again, to say that, are we the best club? Are we doing the things better than anyone else? Well, probably not at the moment. So they're things that I really want to drive hard. We should be results driven. We should be striving to have that Port Adelaide way in both SANFL and AFL, still striving to have what Port Adelaide is. And I think that's a club that's always been honest in their achievements and making sure that we work hard, we don't make excuses, and we see what we want and we go and get it. And it's really about developing a winning culture. Now, I'm purely focusing on the Magpies at this point, developing a winning culture with all of our boys, to understand what it means to play for Port Adelaide, to understand that it's a privilege to play for Port Adelaide. That's what I want them to see, because when I started this footy club, I came in as a Victorian who thought I was doing pretty well in everything, but you really, until I got here, and I was one of those blokes that was lucky that I just loved the culture. I loved getting into this environment that some people felt uncomfortable in, and they moved on, but I absolutely loved it and I thrived in it, and that's what I want to see now with our club. I want to see our club be with that of an environment that it can be too tough for some people and they'll fall off, but the people who embrace it will really move forward and they'll become not just better footballers, but they'll become better people, and that's what I want. That's what I desire for the Port Adelaide Football Club.
Leys, I'm inspired. I feel like going and playing a game of football right now. Tell me, we'll go back to that stage where you first came over from Richmond. Of course, you had a career at Richmond in the AFL, and then you joined Port Adelaide in the mid-90s. Just give us an understanding. You talk about the culture. You walked into the football club. You love the culture. What culture are you talking about specifically in terms of winning at all costs, demanding the best, suffering no fools?
I'll tell you, from the first day I walked in here, I'd been speaking to Central Districts for a long time, and they were really keen to get me over. Then I came over and played a game the weekend before I was supposed to go and spend a week with Centrals. And I
played a game here.
Played a game here.
Yep.
It was against Glenelg down at the Bay.
A trial game.
In a trial game.
Yep.
Walked into the rooms, and I don't know whether you've ever watched Star Wars, but I thought I was walking into the Star Wars bar. So Rowan Smith, Roger Delaney, George Fiarchi and Tim Ginniver standing there, and I looked at these blokes and thought, who are these blokes? Like, I had no idea who they were, but it probably took me an afternoon to say, I love this place.
Yeah.
And the example was I was playing on Jim West at the time, playing at centre half back, and the message comes out from David Arnfield, punch him in the face. So I punched him in the face.
Yeah, right, okay.
And then, Arnie's come out and taken me off the field. I get in the car with Brian Cunningham. I go for a drive, and that was my negotiation for my contract.
Right,
so
okay.
By the end of the ride, we'd worked out a deal that I was coming to play for Port Adelaide, and this was my contract. So that's how it worked. But the thing that I noticed most is that we had such a desire for success, and even though they'd won a fantastic premiership in '94 and then '92, they'd won. There was still this hunger to say, where wasn't an arrogance, it was a confidence and a belief to say, our first game against Glenelg, when I actually signed, our first game at Footy Park at the time, we lost by 70 points.
That was in '95, round one.
Yep.
Scotty broke his leg.
Yep, Scotty broke his
shocking
ankle.
Injury.
And I thought, that's it, we're finished. Our greatest player has broken his ankle, we've lost by 70 points. In the rooms after the game, it was just all about not accepting it. We're at training the next morning, and just to hear the boys say, well, we maybe lost this, but we'll still win the premiership. And that amazed me, that belief that we had at the time. And I came into that, so you had no choice but to believe and to make sure you embrace it. But also the ownership and the accountability that I found, that if we went outside the rules, now in those days there wasn't a lot of values put up on the board and there wasn't a lot of rules put up on the board, but if you went outside what we believed, you were told to. If we didn't put our head over the ball and get the footy, your teammate was there telling you that was no good, that's not our style of play, you go and get it. If we didn't back into a pack and get crunched or make sure that we kept going, if we ducked our heads, someone was there to tell us that that's not what we do. Now, I don't know whether we have that accountability at the moment, and I do believe that we need to get that back. I don't think that anyone should be out on the football field thinking that they can't commit themselves 100% when they're playing footy. At some stage, every footballer has fear in a game of footy, but it's overcoming that fear to making sure that, we all get smashed at some stage. So that's what I want our boys to understand, how important it is when we're playing to say, this is what we do. It's a
non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable, that's it.
You commit yourself.
Yep, and that's what I want our boys to understand. If someone doesn't do it, you're telling them that they haven't committed themselves on the day, and that's something that until they get it, they won't really understand what we're talking about. And you can't. I don't like to go back and say this is what we used to do. This is not about what we did 100 years ago or now. This is just it. That's what we do, and it's not. I don't think we need to measure against any other year. We need to measure against who we are at Port Adelaide Footy Club. So that's what I want them to understand.
So who drove that culture back in the mid-90s, or did it evolve? Was it John Cale, the coach? Was it the leadership group? Was it Tim Ginniver? Was it Brian Cunningham? Who drove it, or was it a collective group?
I think it was collective. Like you didn't have Jack. Jack wasn't a strategist. Jack basically just had a team that he knew that he had 21 blokes out there at the time that they were there to play. It was driven by the players. The players on field, the players off field. If you went outside the rules of what our club was, then you were told, and you were made sure that you were brought back in really quickly. Like we used to have crisis meetings if we lost 2 games in a row. So
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, 2 games in a row. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, that puts it into context.
Yep, but that's because we all took ownership of what was happening. We took ownership if we were losing games. We took ownership if someone wasn't committing themselves hard enough. We took ownership if you didn't care enough for your teammate, and that's what it's about. It's about if you care and you're committed, well then you're going to do the things that you should be doing and what's expected of you.
Can you identify a favourite memory from your playing days here at Port Adelaide?
Oh, there are so many. Like 4 premierships, yeah, without a doubt, they're my favourite memories. But I think the biggest thing was that I never ever realised at 26 years old, coming here probably, I think, I turned 27 before the season started. I never realised that I'd find a footy club that I'd say for the rest of the life, this is my footy club. I came from a club, Richmond, I'd supported since I was 2 years old, but then to come into here and see what this is like, it's hard to explain sometimes how it grabs hold of you and how much fun it is. Like football is about fun, but winning is fun. If you're winning, you're having fun, and then you're creating that culture where you understand that this is why we win. This is because we make hard decisions. Now we have to continue to make hard decisions. Now we have to continue to make sure that we have an environment that people either thrive in, or it's too hard for them, or it's too uncomfortable for them, they move on. Now that's tough, but to be the best again, we have to thrive in that environment.
And you're surrounded by successful people here at the Magpies as well. I mean, Tony Bamford, and of course Paul Evans, Brian Binky, yourself are all that premiership reunion style from 1999.
It's really about getting those guys now to. I think it's really important to the coaches right now to take more ownership of developing these boys into leaders and into having that mental toughness to understand what we do when we play. Now, I know that we now leave it to leaders and we say that the leaders are the people who set the standard, but in our case, it shouldn't be. I think everyone needs to take it on because we're lacking in leadership. I think it showed against South Adelaide on the weekend that when everyone is up and everyone is desperate and everyone is playing their part, we're a really good side. But you will also probably wouldn't have noticed as much that the talk and the direction that was going on out there as well. And that's really important that it's driven by the coaches, the players, myself. Everyone has to buy into this. And if Tony and myself aren't buying into it, but we're trying to get the players to buy into it, it's not going to work. So it's buying from the top, which is myself, all the way down through to the trainers.
Have you implemented any changes that you'd be comfortable sharing with us at the moment on the podcast?
Yeah, we're really looking at making everyone accountable. Now, we've worked really hard with the coaching staff to review the coaching staff, to find out where they're at, to see how they can do things better, how they can more effectively communicate. One of the things that we're trying to do with the players and the coaches is start up. We've just put in an intranet for all players and coaches so they can now communicate throughout the day via intranet. So if the players want to have a look at a review from their coaches, the coaches will put that review onto the intranet site. They'll go in, they'll log in, they'll have a look at that. They can also see our monthly calendar of training. They can see upcoming events. Also, if there's anything on there that they need to find out about policies, we can have those policies on there as well. If you're not here full time, you need to have those sorts of things. In regards to players, we're focused on on-field leadership and courage in leadership as well, because it takes courage to be able to go to someone and tell them they've done something wrong and take the humour out of it as well. I think sometimes when we try and confront someone, we try and bring a little bit of humour in it as well to soften it. Yep. I want the boys to see how important it is. Strong leadership means that you're courageous enough to go to a person and look at them in the eye and tell them what's actually happened that's wrong and what they need to improve on. So that's a really big thing at the moment. We're making sure that they take ownership of the things that aren't happening at the moment.
From this interview, we can tell, and anyone who knows you, Leys, you don't pull any punches. One final one. how long do you think realistically it will take the Magpies to climb the tree again to the ultimate success?
Yeah, I think this year is all about putting things in place. Now, we still believe we can play in the finals this year, and that's our number one goal, to play in the finals this year. Once we get that belief and that winning culture back, it could be next year that we could be competing again for a grand final spot. So I think it's as early as next year if we can get this right now. So the second half of this year is really important to say we have a clear focus on what we're trying to do, what areas we need to improve on, and how our culture needs to turn into a winning culture, that the environment is a successful environment that some people aren't going to enjoy. Then I believe by next year we could be playing off again.
Leys, you're a star, you're inspiring, you're aggressive, but we know exactly where you are at, and we wish you all the very best in your new role as General Manager here at the Magpies, the Port Adelaide Football Club's SANFL division. Thank you for being a big part of the podcast.
Thanks, boys. Fantastic. I love it.